What's going on, guys? Bergs and Longy here from The Casual Athlete, back to hit you again with another video coming from the Bella Vista Hotel podcast studio. We're so lucky to have them have us here. If you haven't already, please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week. And today, a very loving video. We're going to be giving the guys who have been underappreciated, unloved, or possibly need a hug at their club. We're going to give them some recognition this week, and we're picking one player from every single team that we think, Longy and I, that are underrated. Starting off with the Brisbane Broncos. Longy, who have you got for the Broncos, mate?
This is a hard one because they're pretty highly rated, but I'm going with Moser at hooker. I think he's a great young player. Everyone knows he's a great young player, but I think he's good enough today to come out and play 50 minutes in the middle for the Broncos.
Absolutely.
Super creative, sets up a bunch of plays, and yeah, he's that guy.
Yeah, definitely a guy who probably should have gotten his chance last year, but because the Broncos did so well, they just kept Billy Walters in this year, and they really found out this year that Walters is probably not the guy, and that Moser coming on each and every week. Speak to a lot of Broncos fans, they want Moser in each and every week as well. So I totally agree with you on that one. I went a different route. I've actually gone to Corey Jensen, possibly a guy that we could have used and kept this year at the Cowboys because we needed a few middles, but averaged 112 meters a game this year, and that's just as the same as guys like Fisher Harris, and he plays 45, 50 minutes a week. Loved what I saw from Corey Jensen this year. Just an absolute beast in the middle. The Raiders are up next, and I thought that going away from the team, who was a guy that, didn't get as many games this year, but probably deserved more, and I went James Schiller. I loved what I saw from James Schiller this year. When he played each and every week, 150 meters a game on average, and didn't make a mistake. Just stayed on his wing, scored his tries, and he's pretty quick as well. I know they had guys like Albert Hopewadi, Savage is there. I just feel like James Schiller, making that move to the Knights, I think it's good for him. I think he'll get a start next year, and I'm really interested to see what he can produce for them next year.
Yeah, Schiller's a guy I wanted Parramatta to pick up midway through the year. I was begging for that.
Didn't they nearly get it done or something like that?
They nearly get it done. Look,
he's wasn't as bad as Harley Smith-Shields had his bags packed and nearly
that's brutal. Yeah, no, but look, he's a super potent attacking player, so I'm with you there. I thought you might go Horsburgh when you were talking about lower minutes, because I think he is a bit underrated right now, but I think generally NRL still rates him. The guy I'm going to point out here is Hudson Young. And I think he's underrated. And the point I'm going to make here is I think he's rated as a pretty solid club back rower, right?
He is.
That's where everyone has him. Exactly. Yep. You've proven my point. I think he's better than that. I think he's super potent, very strong attacking player. Got it done in fantasy down the stretch as well, which maybe might makes him like him more. But he's just one of those guys who he comes up with a lot of forced errors as well. Hits hard, good work rate, great attacking ability. And he does it regardless of who the halves are inside him as well. So Canberra were mixing and mashing it all, and Hudson Young was one consistent part of that team.
Especially down the stretch. That bothered me a bit.
He's a beast, man. He's a beast. All right, I'm going to go to the Doggies. By the way, guys, we are doing this in alphabetical order. So if you want to skip ahead to your team.
Feel free to do it.
Yeah, so Canterbury, Bankstown Bulldogs, Brisbane Broncos. It's the first name there. But for the Doggies, I'm going to go with a guy who isn't the Dogs as of November 1, Jarrell Skelton. Yeah. And I think he's a first-grade winger. I just think he's a first-grade winger. I've thought that for a couple of years now. He's gone to the Tigers, I assume, to be a first-grade winger. But the fact that he was out of the Dogs side, not a critique of any of their wingers that were starting. I just think he's good. But I think Blake Wilson's good as well. A lot of these guys are really strong players, but Skelton isn't rated as a starting winger in the league.
No.
And he is one.
No, he's a lot like an elevated version of what I would say Mike Acevo is, to tell you the truth. He's the guy who is a big bruiser, or maybe in the same mode as Greek Marzu. That's kind of what I would relate him to, but definitely underrated in my book as well. I went a little bit of a different route. I went for Bailey Hayward, because this guy played virtually 20 games this year in the middle, and he's virtually a half. He's such a small bloke, but to do what he did and make every 9 out of 10 tackles that he makes each and every week, I just thought for the Dogs this year, with the small forward pack that they had, he had to do a lot of work, and he didn't look out of place to me at all. I just loved what Bailey Hayward was able to produce, and I just think the small blokes in the middle deserve a bit of love, and that's what I decided to give him.
Surely Kurt Mann then.
I thought Curtis Morin as well, a little bloke in the middle again for the Dogs, had a number of big impact games this year, but yeah, just felt like Bailey Hayward deserved a little bit more. Not too sure why, but any of those guys is a good answer in my book. Sharks are next, and this guy actually debuted for the Sharks back in 2018. Played on the weekend as well against my Cowboys, and I got to say, Jack Williams for me has possibly been just kept out of this Sharks side. He's only played 122 games at this point, but he's been kept out of this Sharks starting side by Cam McInnes and the guys before him as well. I just want to see Jack Williams maybe go to another club, and I think he can be a starting lock in this league because he averages roughly 100 metres a game on 45 minutes at this point in time. I think he has a lot more minutes in him, and for the Jets each and every week, he's fun to watch, but I don't want to see him playing for the Jets. I want to see him get his bigger opportunity. I want to get him a bit more love, a bit more notoriety for Jack Williams.
Yeah, when he gets a shot, he puts up massive numbers.
Yeah.
Like big motor, has a few mistakes in his game, but no, he's an awesome player. I went a different way, and again, I'm going for a guy, similar to my Hudson Young pick, who is rated as a first grader. I think he's better than that. Kale Iro. Yeah, I think he's quickly becoming one of the premier centers in the comp, and because he's young, because he recently debuted, he was held out for a long time. I think he was underrated through that period as well.
Yeah, it's just a joke.
But I think he's genuinely one of those bona fide top tier centers coming into the league. And I don't know, do you know how old he is?
22.
22. There we go. He's young, man. He's young. Like he's younger than Isaac Tungo, Will Penasini, those sorts of guys who are still developing as well. And I think you give him a couple of years, he's gonna be one of those big units.
He's so solid defensively.
Oh yeah,
he's unbelievable,
and that work rate's massive. We'll then go to the Titans again. Similar pick for me here, Bo Firma. He's one of those guys who just comes out and gets it done every year. And I remember looking at fantasy this year, and I sort of thought, there's no way that he can attack at the rate he's going to have to attack to produce fantasy points for our teams. And he needs double digits tries basically to be valuable in fantasy. But there's no way in this Titans side, not going to happen. He went and did it.
He did it. Yeah, he just went and did it.
And there were games where they lost like 40-8, and he was the 8 points. Like he's just one of those guys who it doesn't seem to matter what's going around him. He creates hacking plays, and I think his defense short up a bit this year as well. And you obviously got him come back from that major injury. He's been getting it done. So Bo Firma's my guy there.
I agree. I'm in the same boat. Bo Firma. Basically, Longy and I didn't look at each other's list before this as well. So Bo Firma for me. The fact that he wasn't even considered for State of Origin this year, especially even when his teammate wasn't selected for Origin, and you get guys like Brendan Piakura, who
Firma's the one, man. He covers center as well.
Yeah,
so capable.
These guys who weren't even being considered, David Fafita and Bo Firma, it's almost as if Billy Slater didn't like the Titans and just wrote him off this year.
See, I would even have him like you got him next to Capewell, for example. I have him as Capewell's a good player, but Firma's a level above.
Yeah,
right.
It's a joke. Yeah. I honestly think that if you're Bo Firma, you have to think, well, what did I do as well? We were asking that question with David Fafita. I think we should start asking it with Bo Firma as well. Anyway, Bo Firma for both of us. So that concludes our Titans pick. For the Manly Seagulls, I've also gone down maybe I think the Kale Iro route, which maybe a few years ago, he's probably saying that he should have deserved a few more starts a couple of years ago. I'm going to go with Jamie Humphries. I think that it's a really big mistake on Manly's part to let this kid go. I know that DCE probably has 1, maybe 2 years in him at best, and this kid can either start in the halves or he can start at hooker. He's going to be offering way more than guys like Gordon Cham Kuntung. I also think he's better than Lachlan Kuroka, and he could walk into the Rabbitohs starting side next year at either hooker or the halfback spot. I don't care which one it is. I know they've signed Mitchell Dodd.
Yeah.
Dodd from the Super League, but I just love Jamie Humphries, man. I think he's going to be a great player in this league.
Yeah, I've seen a limited game from him, but the games I've
seen... The shameless rookie plug.
Yeah. Oh, well, he's been super explosive as well, man. Like, he's been super potent when he's gotten a shot.
Oh, definitely.
Big fantasy scores as well, so worth shouting out there too. But yeah, no, I don't mind that pick. I've gone Carl Lawton. Bit of a different flavor here. And he's a guy who's been a bit of a journeyman across his career. But for Manly this year, there were times where he's starting in the edge back row spot. He's playing big minutes at hooker. He could play in the middle. He was basically doing whatever they needed. Played at center a bit. He's just one of those guys who you can plug into your squad, and you need players like that. Like you need guys who can come in, and we talked about both Firma's flexibility in origin level. Lawton does that at a club level. So he's one of those guys. He helped the sort of world keep going around for Manly this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. Cowboys playing next year as well.
Hey, good for you guys. You need that sort of player.
Yeah,
right
we need a bit
you don't
more
have Granville
off the bench
anymore, right? So
need a bit more off the bench. He's probably not going to be coming in and playing second row, but we need some effort off the bench.
You don't need second row, but a bit of hooker maybe. So for the Storm then, Melbourne Storm, I'm taking Trent Loiero here. And he's a guy who I thought was a bit overrated a couple of years ago. He was getting the start in the back row. I just didn't love him as an edge back row. And I was probably a bit critical of him because there was some other guys in the squad I wanted to play for fantasy. So bit of bias there. But he's played lock spot a lot this year.
Yep.
And he's played in the middle forwards, and he's a big unit, man. Like he's like 6'6". Hits hard. He's been very potent, great offloading game as well. In a team where they've been missing guys like Christian Welch, who's been missing games. Nas has been missing games. A lot of these guys have been missing time. Lair has stepped up and been fantastic for them.
Yeah, he's a guy who not only forced Tarek Sims out of that second row spot last year because he played second row because they didn't have Sean Bloor. He's probably forced Josh King to go to the front row this year while he's been playing lock this year. Probably something that Melbourne Storm discussed about. But he is one guy who definitely deserved some origin time this year, especially for Queensland Maroons in place of guys like Kafusi and Capewell. I just felt like Liero was in form. They needed to pick him. I went a little bit different, but kind of similar as well. I went his teammate Josh King. I also think that Josh King is one of those guys who is a lot like Jake Trbojevic, but just doesn't get the kind of accolades that Jake Trbojevic seems to get. Jake Trbojevic is the New South Wales captain and everything. And everyone talks about how he didn't play that many minutes and in Origin, but for Manly each and every week, he's such an important player. I do think that Josh King adds that kind of quality to this Melbourne side. He's so strong in the middle, especially for a guy who's not your typical size for a front rower. Getting through the work that he does each and every week needs to be appreciated, and that's what we're here to do. Give the guys.
So what I'm hearing is we are saying the Melbourne Storm forward pack is a bit underrated right now, because I think the story that's been going for the last 15 years is that the Melbourne Storm forward pack and role players are carried by the spine, right? That's what everyone talks about all the time, right? And I think this year you look at it, Pappenhausen's been playing with a bit of injury. Gary Grant hasn't been at his best. He's still a great hooker, but not at his top level. Cam Munster's been in and out of the team. Wishart's come in and played well. And then Jerome Hughes is absolutely fantastic right now. But it's not a forward pack being carried by a spine right now. It's a foot pack that is carrying the team some weeks. So
absolutely.
Yeah, shout out to Liero, shout out to Josh King.
Shout out to Melbourne.
We love Ellie Katoa as well.
Big Sean Bloor fan to this year as well. Coming from the Tigers, you probably expect him to get better, but maybe not as good as he has been for them. He's an important part of their forward pack now as well. So, shout out to the Melbourne forward staff.
Mate, they're getting it done. They're getting it done.
Yeah, each and every week. So, the Warriors up next, and we're going across the border for this one. Probably a guy for me who didn't play that much this year, but I really liked what I saw from Rocco Berry, to tell you the truth. Not a lot of people know this, but during the first few weeks of the season, Rocco Berry was actually leading the league in one-on-one tackles made. Wow. He is one of those guys who is a bit unassuming. You don't necessarily think about him. When you think about the Warriors, you think about the Sean Johnsons, the Chancellor Klokstad, the Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Yeah. And I think that Rocco was such an important piece of their defense early on, and they were competing in games, and a lot of it was to do with some of the tackles that he made. And when he got injured, you definitely noticed that kind of air go out of that either right. I think it was the right side as well. And I just feel like they needed him a little bit more. And I think that when he comes back next year, you'll see an improvement from Rocco.
Yeah, he's good. He's shown some glimpses, right? So he has that flick pass as well. He can beat a tackle. I'm a big Ali Leitao fan myself. So
left and right. Yep.
Yeah, but you've got Ali and then you've got RTS, right? So
is RTS a center?
I like him better at fullback, but that means that Nickel Klokstad's your center. So my point is, Rocco Berry isn't in my Warriors 17, but I get what you're saying. They've got a lot of guys like that who are really solid. Like we talk about Montoya as well.
Jackson Ford is one that I could have said as well.
Yeah, he's underrated. He's big underrated. But a good shout. I'm going Luke Metcalf for my Warrior, who's underrated. And I think people just don't realize how freakishly talented he is. And, he's one of those guys who, it's a role that doesn't actually get rated that highly in rugby league for some reason, but your number 6 who can pop up at the right time and score tries. And we talk about, Cody Walker. I think he's the perfect example of this. But Luke Metcalf is in that sort of mold where he's got heaps of pace. He runs great support. And he's a secondary half who adds tons of conversion upside to your attacking plays. So he doesn't need the ball a bunch. And if you have a guy like Sean Johnson in the halfback spot, then he just converts. He almost plays fullback for you, which is good because CNK doesn't really play that supporting fullback role. He's more of a bruiser and, hands on the ball kind of guy. So I think Luke Metcalf fits the Warriors well. And I think he's underrated because of all the injuries he's had. So
yeah, agree. I love Luke Metcalf. I mean, play for the Jets as well. I know I keep relating things to playing for the Jets, but seeing him live, I get what you mean. He was always backing up on plays from either ones that he set up for Cade Dykes. So like he would set up the line break, and then Cade Dykes would go bang straight through, and who'd be on the inside?
Oh yeah, he's almost a bit of a Dylan Brown light. Yeah, in a way.
I just want to see him stay on the field.
That's
the thing with Luke. It's the injuries right now, but definitely agree with you on that one.
See you guys next year. For the Knights, I'm going to move across, and there's a few options for the Knights. I liked Jaden Brayley in this spot. I think he's underrated right now. I think he's actually a really, really good hooker, and he's being benched for anyone.
Looking at him.
I hope we get him, man.
Yeah.
I'm stoked if we get him.
I think you need him,
well,
to tell you the truth.
I'd take him, and I'd take this other guy as well, Jackson Hastings. Right?
You'd take Jackson Hastings.
Not at the full price, but 800 grand is a lot. But Jackson Hastings is sitting on the bench behind Cogger and Crossland. Two players who, look, they're getting it done. They're getting it done, right? They got them to the finals, all that. But I just think Hastings is the best half they have.
Let's get one thing straight. They did not get them to the finals. The number one got them to the finals.
Okay,
I don't call him by his name anymore. I call him the number one.
I still reckon Hastings is the best half of the club. There must be some off-field issue for this to be going on, because on the field, he's a weapon.
He must be the world's worst bloke.
Well, he's such a good player. That's the problem, right? Like,
you go to Father's Day sometimes and they have world's greatest dad.
Yep.
Most of the Knights players are getting him coffee mugs that say world's worst bloke on them at the moment. I don't know what he does. I don't know what he does to be so, I guess, discarded. Like, what's he done?
Tigers threw him away as well, and he was one of their best. And I remember the Tigers, they were running him at lock for a while, and they were like, "Right, you just got to play through the middle." Dude was making 40 tackles a game and 150 meters. Like, he'll do whatever he's asked to do.
I think he'd be a good hooker.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Jackson Hastings to hooker.
I mean, I want Ilias to hooker.
If you guys haven't noticed already, I also went with Jackson Hastings. So that's I guess for the Knights. I couldn't really look at anyone else and go, who deserves more playing time? Who's not getting enough? Who deserves a hug right now?
Braden Best, is he underrated?
Yeah, a bit overrated, actually. No, we'll get to our overrated section after this. But my Cowboys are up next, and the team that knocked the Knights out of the finals this year. And then we went to watch them play on the weekend. And what was the one thing that you noticed was lacking?
A win.
Yeah, a win, definitely. But a bit of halves execution for me. And there's one guy who we got rid of this year, and I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan for it. I didn't know why it happened. Chad Townsend, for me, has to be underrated as a Cowboys player. I think the guy had 21 try assists in 20 games this year. He also kicked the most field goals of any player. And if you're going to go into the finals and you're going to have a half who, like Clifford, has won less than 40% of the games in his career. Yes, he'd won every game coming back in as a Cowboy. This is the point I'm trying to make is, in those big games, is he going to step up? And we saw it. No, he made errors in that game. Didn't really step up until the second half. And you need that halfback who's been there before. He knows what it takes to win a grand final. And he needs to be able to take charge. And I think Chad Townsend was that guy. He was sitting in our reserve grade side, and we could have picked him, and we didn't. And I think that if it was also going to be a close game, he's there for a field goal as well. I just think it was a really big misstep on the Cowboys' part this year, and it's possibly one that may irk me in terms of what they could have done this year.
Yeah, I was surprised that you left him out for such a long time, because he's done it again. He's done it with Cronulla as well, so he knows them well. He's a steering number 7, which is what you need next to Dearden. So I'm with you there. I'm going to agree with you there on Townsend for that spot. We'll move through to the Eels next. And
it's funny how that works. You take Cowboys, I take Eels.
Oh, the Eels. We've got plenty of options here. I mean, 1-17 is underrated at Parramatta, but the whole thing's underrated.
Don't go where I think you're going to go.
I think I have to do this. No. I have to do this because it's criminal. It's criminal how this bloke is spoken about.
I'm going to leave. I'll leave.
The most underrated player in the comp right now is Micah Sevo. And the fact that all of you are typing angry comments right now shows me that it's true, right? The fact that no one agrees with me on this means that he is underrated. If everyone thinks he's the worst, but he's actually a pretty solid first grader. Great finisher, has some mistakes in his game. He's fine. He's a fine winger. He wouldn't be a problem if we weren't so bad everywhere else. I think he's a first grade player, and everyone else just seems to think he's such an issue. So Micah Sevo, most underrated player in the comp, and definitely the most underrated for Parramatta.
Wow. You actually said that on a video.
I love Sevo, man.
Okay.
I love maybe a bit of bias.
My thing is with you, right? If everyone is saying that he's bad, wouldn't that then tell you, everyone's saying he's bad. Maybe I should also think that he's bad.
I don't think he's. I think he's got flaws in his game, but I think he's definitely a net positive. And I haven't seen many games where he's been the worst winger on our team, let alone the worst player. Like he's always the better winger for Parramatta.
That's not saying much. To tell you the truth. Anyway, I did not go with Mike Acevo because I 100% disagree with you.
Wow.
But I went with Offengawi. I think that he is also a guy who I think Para could use a lot more of on the pitch. I just think that, when Paulo went down this year, he stepped up really well. And if you don't start him next year with RCG possibly leaving, I don't know what is happening with RCG. He was going to go to the Dragons. Now he's doing the Broncos. Anyway, whatever. Titans now. Yeah, I mean, like, what's RCG doing? But he's leaving. We know that. And if Offengawi is not the starting front rower next year, I think you guys have made a mistake. I just feel like he deserves a little bit more love. And, he's a former Origin player. He plays good, plays really well when he plays lock, I think, as well. Anyway, let us know down in the comments if you think Sivo's underrated or overrated. We got the Panthers up next, and
hard.
It's tough, going to a premiership winning team, but I think what I'm going to say is maybe for the rest of the comp, something that the rest of the comp should really invest in, and it's a backup halfback in Brad Schneider, because he is one of those guys who I think every single club in the competition underrated, because I thought he was good at Canberra when he stepped in and played a few games. Then Canberra let him go, and then no one in the comp went, maybe we should sign back Brad Schneider as maybe a backup halfback to see, if our halfback could have been injured. Would you have liked him this year at Parramatta?
Para fan, I was crying every week because we didn't have a backup halfback.
Exactly. And I think it's something that should be taken out of Penrith's book, that they place investment in a backup halfback. They maybe know Cleary's going to miss.
Sullivan before, Cogger before, like they've had a bunch of guys in that
They're
spot.
so smart with it. And again, I think he's also a guy who could be starting at other clubs. I think the Knights could use him. I think Para could have definitely used him this year. I think the Raiders could have used him this year at 5'8". Maybe took Ethan Strange to center if he wants to play center. I just think there's a number of clubs that could have used this kid, and he deserves a bit of props here.
Yep, agree with that. I like that. I'm going to go a different way here, and I'm going to take Liam Henry in this spot. And I think Liam Henry is rated sufficient, like to a certain extent, right? Yeah. So everyone sees him as a pretty solid player. What people don't seem to understand is the limitless work rate he has. So there are games where he does play close to 80 minutes. And he makes like 65 tackles, pumps out 100 plus meters, just gets it done. Yeah. And he's just one of those guys, like real glue guys, who you don't have to worry about, right? So
agreed.
Yeah, I just think he's one of those guys where if you have him in your team, then you can afford to pick some more expansive players who maybe aren't as high work rate in other areas. And it's where you were talking about Offengawi, for example. I like Offengawi in the middle. I'm with you there because he's a work rate guy, and it means we can have Hopgood in there, maybe not making as many tackles and focusing on attack, right? Yeah. So I'm with you there, and I think Liam Henry's that guy for the Panthers. Moving to the Dolphins, I've gone for a similar player, and he's starting to get more rated now, but I still think he's a little bit underrated. Max Plath. He's a stud, man. This guy is a beast, and he runs a line like no one else. He can play hooker. He can make 60 tackles. He can score a double. Like he can do every single thing in the game. And I think he gets underrated because he's a bit smaller than the average lock.
It's kind of like my Bailey Hayward with the Bulldogs point, right? Like, but he just does it better. I think
he's the best in the game.
Honestly, listed as a half, as you said, small bloke, but you're right. Doesn't get the kind of plaudits. I also went with Max Plath. I think that the kid is unstoppable, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him in a
Just look at the support lines he runs, man. Like that's the thing that really shocks me because you watch him play.
He's always there
off the ball, right? And activity off the ball creates all the lanes that the more creative attacking players use. So guys like him, they make it happen.
Definitely. We've got the Rabbitohs next, and it's a guy that we once again both agree on. And Damien Cook is got to be the guy here because they're just finding any excuse that they can to get him out of the club.
Yeah, it's weird.
When their backup or next in line option is Jamie Humphries, who we get to see a bit of because they signed him this year, and Peter Mamuzelis, who, no offense, I haven't seen that much of. But for Cook, this year I thought he was good again. Went to another level, really kept up his work rate. I think that he had those really insightful runs as well, especially on a team that was playing so badly. To be as good as he was, I think you've really got to... You can't overlook that if you're the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, I'm confused by this because he got benched a few times as well. And
got shifted to center at points?
Yeah, but they obviously don't rate Mamuzelis that highly because he wasn't taking minutes off Cook too much. Right? Cook was staying on the field. and moving to prop, moving to different spots.
I'm really interested in what they do next year.
Yeah,
Whether it's Havili, maybe. I don't know.
It's a weird scenario, right? I think the Dragons offered him about $500,000 as well, so $500K.
Yeah.
Which is big unders for a guy who, he's a beast, right? Yeah. And he's not Harry Grant. He's not Cameron Smith, right? And I think people are upset because they're like, he doesn't have a kicking game. It's like, well,
he's not.
I don't care if he doesn't have a kicking game.
He's not the Damien Cook of 2021 or
Get
whatever.
yourself some halves who have a kicking game.
Yeah, exactly.
And Latrell can kick. Hooker doesn't need to be primary playmaker like that.
I think as well, when it's all going wrong at some point, and it was going wrong for the Rabbitohs this year, that everyone starts pointing fingers at certain people. And I think it just happened that, the spinning wheel finally landed on Damien Cook, and they said, "All right, mate, pick up your game, or you're gone."
Don't they know though that he's a beach sprinter?
Yeah, exactly.
You got to respect that.
Yeah, you got to.
Yeah. Oh. No, he's a weapon though. And he goes to the Dragons next year too, where my most underrated players for the Dragons is also a hooker, Jacob Little, because they've gone, oh, well, that guy that isn't rated, we're going to sign Damien Cook so that we can fuck off. This guy
who also isn't rated.
We don't rate, who I rate. I want them both at Parramatta.
Yeah, look.
Jacob Little, he was unstoppable this year. Super explosive, great running game, had a bunch of try involvements. Across his career, he's sort of,
up and
to
down.
me, been a potential guy for a long time.
Been a bit up and down, yeah.
But this year, man, he got it done. In a Dragons team too that they weren't perfect. They got dusted up a few times, but he never put his head down. He was always turning up.
No, he's that kind of player, though, right? He always has something going on.
What are they doing next year? Is he going?
No, he's not.
What are they doing?
I think
Damien Cook's going to lock.
Bench. Little to bench.
What a waste.
I'd go Little to bench.
Send Little to Parramatta. This is my plea to you, Shane.
You can't have everybody.
Send me.
You can't sign. Parra can't sign everybody.
I'll look after him. All right, if Jacob Little, if you're watching this, mate, I want you at Parramatta. Look how big our forward pack is. It wasn't great last year. But the year before in 2022, mate, you'll kill it. Hope you see.
When you let go of another hooker as well.
I'm tagging Jacob Little in this video now.
Yeah.
So
okay.
You'll see. We'll see.
All right. We'll move on to my player, and I went with Tom Eisenhuth, who I also think this year stepped up in ways that I didn't expect. I think it's more because he surprised me this year more than anything. I thought coming away from the Storm, we don't often see Storm forwards leave and continue to be effective or good in any way. I just feel like Eisenhuth continued that this year and deserves a bit of props here. It was my most underrated player or most underappreciated player. He also kept Jack DeBellin out of the team most weeks.
Can play center as well. He's done a bunch for them,
100%. Roosters is up next, and I've gone for Nat Butcher. I think this guy is the biggest plug-and-play guy in the league in terms of forward pack. You could put him in the front row, you could put him at lock, you could put him on the edge, and he wouldn't look out of place each and every week. Makes a ton of tackles, is so underappreciated by the Roosters, I think. I think he should be starting each and every week instead of maybe guys like Tupanua. I don't really see it from Tupanua this year, maybe since the injury. It's unlucky for Tupanua, but I just don't see it. And Nat, to me, is that guy who is always there and ever present as well. So he's always available. I feel like Nat deserves a bit of love.
Yeah, dude, 100%. It doesn't matter where he plays. Such a big attacking threat as well. Again, I think a lot of these guys we're talking about, they're probably not the biggest players on the field, and they're being maybe downgraded because of that sort of thing. But Nat Butcher gets it done. I'm a big Nat Butcher fan as well. For me, I took Terrell May in this spot, and I think people aren't putting him on the level. Again, look, people view him as a club level player. I think he's more explosive than he lets on, and the fact that they have so many options in the middle forward rotation there at the Chooks means that he doesn't get the minutes he deserves. But if he was at the right club, he would get 55, 60 minutes a game, Parramatta. And, he'd be able to really show out, because I don't think there's that much difference between Terrell May and, let's say, Jermaine Hopgood, right? But he's not viewed in that category at all. So I think he has that sort of level to go to. And maybe it's just a timing thing. But in big finals games last year, he absolutely killed it.
Definitely.
And he's come up big in these games this year as well. And often when you see one of those longer range Roosters tries, there's a Terrell May offload at the start of it, right? So, I'm a big Terrell May fan. And
I like him. He also seems to have avoided the May brother curse to this point in his career. So, we'll see if he continues to go with that.
I wanted to like Taylor as well, but he's sort of gone off the rail. We'll see if he comes back. Then we've got
the last team as well. It's time that we speak about him last as well.
Oh, it's West, right? W. So, but the Tigers, look, a few options you could choose from here. I think there's a lot of really solid guys for the Tigers this year who as a squad, they've struggled, but I think there were some good individual performances.
Mhm.
The guy I love here is Samuel Ofinu.
Yeah.
And as a guy who's played in the back row at the lowest possible grade you can, I really respected the fact that he kept running those lines into contact every single week.
Yep.
And not getting many favors from inside men, but he was relentless this year, and he's got a massive career ahead of him.
Yeah, that was the thing. Do I go with a guy who was pretty rated at the junior level of the game? So I don't really see why we need to rate him or underrate him here. I think in terms of comp wide, 100%. I thought Samuela was good this year. You could go Justin Matamua. I thought he had a good year. Ruben Porter, I thought on the other side was quite good. But I actually went with Fanua Bole. Again, I think that they need to keep him on the team. I don't know what they are going to do about that with Royce Hunt coming next year. I'd love to see Fanua Bole develop some skills to start in that lock role. If he can, have a few more offloads in his game, a bit more damaging runs, but then also be that cleanup guy in the middle, I think he could be there for a number of years to come, and then also help the Tigers get back into the top 8. He's one guy each and every week who I go, yep, he's actually trying for the Tigers.
Damaging ball runner as well.
Yep.
I like him a lot too. I think they can run it. Like they have Clemmer, who's sort of fading out.
Yep.
And they don't seem to rate Twal for some reason.
Yeah,
so
that's a bit weird. Maybe
some minutes off
another
of
guy.
I thought about Twal. Yeah. Try scoring extraordinaire.
Do you want him back at Para? Seeing as you want everyone back at Para. But,
I'd take Twal. I think we need a few of those guys, who just get the shit done. Right?
This has just become who can we get at Para?
We can do that video next. You can get the Para sign. Last one is coach, though.
Yep.
So, do you have a coach you want to throw to? Mine's going to be... I'll tell you mine, actually. I'll tell you my coach.
Okay, you go
underrated coach.
Okay.
I think one of the most underrated coaches, if not the most underrated coach right now, is Brad Arthur. So underrated. So underrated. He should be writing his own checks to clubs who are rebuilding right now.
Consultancy.
Or coach.
Yep.
Like, he took Parramatta from being an absolute disaster. And look, we had a joke year this year, right? But Parramatta were a consistent finals team who made a grand final after a near Tiger-esque run of terrible, terrible performances. So, I think Brad Arthur's one of those guys who you can get a team from the bottom back up to the top. And if I was the Tigers, I would have been trying to sign Brad Arthur way back, trying to do a swap with Madge or something like that. There are plenty of clubs who need guys now as well. So, who needs a rebuild? Whoever it is, get on Brad Arthur.
It's not being, I guess taken so seriously, which is the other thing. The fact that he built that club up from nothing.
Well, look at the identification of talent. Like Jermaine Hopgood was a reserve grader. Isaiah Papali'i was a fringe first grader. Sean Lane was a fringe first grader. Like, a lot of these guys, Mitch Moses, he was streaky. He looked pretty good. He wasn't that guy.
I think another guy you could put in that scenario is Justin Holbrook. I mean, he also didn't do that bad with the Titans, got them to a final for the first time in a few years, and then was just cut it off after one bad season. I really thought that, they brought in Des Hasler, but for me, Des Hasler doesn't really develop any other coaches around him. And Holbrook had such a great pedigree from the Super League. He actually had an 80% win record as a Super League coach. Did you know that? And one of those things that, can transition pretty well is the Super League. And we've seen it with players, but also with some coaches as well.
Okay.
I think maybe he's a guy that a lot of clubs could use as a good coach. He's at the Roosters at the moment as an assistant, and probably the guy that I would think about the most is a guy not in a head coaching role, but should be, that kind of thing. Interesting how we've gone with maybe two coaches that deserve a bit more of a go than, and especially with Brad Arthur, man, he didn't deserve to be treated the way he was.
Yeah, I'd bring him in 100% though. Any clubs looking for a rebuild? Yep. Broncos halfway through next year when they are.
I've heard the Knights might take a stab at him.
We'll do a swap for Braley.
Perth Bears.
Mate, great coach for the Perth Bears if he wants to go.
Perth Bears. Dolphins. Be good.
Yeah.
Take over after Wayne.
Good with some young halves as well. Yeah. He was good with ours. So, yeah. Anyway, that is our overrated or underrated video, mate. Let us know, guys, which ones of these you disagree with, agree with. If there's any players that you think were underrated we didn't mention as well, happy to hear those. Otherwise, like, subscribe, get around it. We'll be here all off season and pumping up into 2025 as well. So we'll see you there.